Lee Summit is your destination for big city vibes and small town charm.
Head to the downtown Lee Summit Farmers Market, where local meets fresh. Then grab a cup of coffee and discover a variety of shops and boutiques just around the corner. Continue the fun in downtown Lee Summit at a retro arcade bar. Discover your new beer at one of our 6 locally owned breweries. Cool off with some handcrafted cocktails at happy hour. End the night with live music and good company. Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hello, Lee Summit. I'm Laura, and this is your flash briefing for the week of April 7th. City Council meet for regular session Tuesday night, 6 in Council Chambers and City Hall. Meetings are open to the public or watched live on the city's YouTube channel. If you can't watch, catch the recorded meeting on demand on the YouTube channel or by subscribing to the Council Debrief newsletter, which breaks down 3 to 4 key agenda items. Subscribe at cityofls.net. Help keep medications out of waterways by participating in National Drug Take Back Day on April 26th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This event is a safe and convenient way to dispose of unwanted over-the-counter and prescription drugs. Drop-off locations include the Lee Summit Police Department, the Lee Summit Medical Center, and the Places Restaurant at John Knox Village. Your feedback is needed on the city's capital improvement plan, which outlines anticipated city infrastructure improvements for fiscal years 2026 through 2030. The online comment period runs through April 21st on the city's website. Comments can also be submitted in person at the April 24th Planning Commission meeting. And celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Lee Summit Fire Department at a fun-filled open house on April 19th from 9 a.m. to noon at Fire Station Number 3, located at 2023 Northwest Shamrock Avenue. Bring the whole family to tour the fire station and walk through an inflatable house to learn about fire safety. Don't miss this opportunity to honor the legacy and join the celebration. Thanks for listening and have a great week.
I'm Assistant Chief Jim Eden.
And I'm Battalion Chief Ben Hicks.
And today we're at Lee Summit Fire Station 3. Fire Station 3 was part of the 2016 no tax increase general obligation bond for public safety initiatives. The station was built and occupied in August of 2020. Unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we've not been able to give tours or have an actual ribbon cutting. So we want to invite you in today to give you the opportunity to see what goes on within a Lee Summit Fire Department station.
Let's go take a tour. This is our admin side of the facility. We use this side mainly for offices. We have a lot of work during the day, whether it's training or doing reports or just generally taking care of the shift that we need to do. At this particular station, Station 3, we do have an assistant chief that works out of here. That person has their own office where they need to manage what's going on throughout the day with the shift and staffing, and as well as running calls out of here. The captain has their own office as well. What the captain does is at this specific station is in charge of both the fire truck that's here as well as the ambulance. And so with all those personnel responsibilities as well as running calls and reports, that's where they work out of. And generally for the rest of the crew, which is somewhere around 5 to 6 individuals, we have rooms to write reports, and we have additional training rooms and other rooms where people can work. Walking into our living area, I think it's important to recognize that we work 48-hour shifts. So in the evenings, after 5 o'clock, after work is done, we may have the opportunity to catch a game or something else as long as we're not running calls. And this gives us the opportunity to do that. When we go into our kitchen, I think this gives you a great reason to know why we go to the grocery store. When you see fire trucks at the grocery store, what we're doing. Also for 2 days working for 48 hours, we buy all our meals at the grocery store, and then we come in here and cook. Just like you guys do at home. So everybody has their own fridge on each shift as well as their own pantry, and then we cook those meals here. Going into the sleeping side of things, we've got a couple different things that are significant. We have our own laundry room, which again is important when we're here for 48 hours. The opportunity to wash and clean our clothes and bedding is very important for hygiene. And walking into where our beds are, we keep the kind of sleeping quarters over on one side of the building. It gives us both easy access out to where our fire apparatus are, as well as kind of keeping it a little bit quieter for those people that have been up all night running calls. We have 11 bedrooms here at this station, and the reason we built it with so many bedrooms is we want to give ourselves as a city the opportunity to expand. So if we need to put another apparatus here or numerous other people working at this station, that's already in place as far as infrastructure goes, and we don't need to go back and try to make it bigger or better, and that's really important for us, especially because the old station was so small. Back out on the apparatus floor, we have doors facilitated as many places as possible, so that way when we're sleeping at night and a call comes out, we can make our way out fairly quickly to get out onto the truck if we need to and run a call. On the other side of the station, we kind of have other stuff that we may want to keep separated if we want to. Physical fitness is very important to us as firefighters. So in order to better ourselves and make sure we're as healthy as we can to do this job, we have our own gym facility here that we kind of go throughout the day when we can and get an opportunity to come in and work out. Our goal when we run calls, when we get back to the station after calls, our goal is to get ready to go back as soon as we can to run another call. So we have the opportunity or capability here to fill up our air tanks. You can see firefighters wear the big air tanks on their backs and they use those in a fire. We can come back and fill those up and make sure that we're ready to go again when we're wanting to go run another call. We have our own workshop here. We work on a lot of our tools and making sure that everything's clean and operational, and this gives us the capability to do that, again, to make sure that we have everything we need and we're as capable as we can be running calls throughout the city. Cancer prevention is very important in the fire service right now. Because of that, we have an extractor machine, and what this does is gives us the capability when we come back from a fire, we can put our bunker gear into this machine and get all that really nasty crud off of our gear. Again, kind of getting back into that cancer prevention mode, allowing us to be as clean as we possibly can for the next call. And finally is our bunker gear room. We each have our own individual locker. This gives us the opportunity to store our gear when we're not here working in between shifts, as well as keep a clean extra set on here in case we do run a fire and we need to clean our current gear. Typically, this is where your day starts off at the fire station. You come in and get your gear and put it on wherever you're working that day, and then you end the same way, bringing your stuff back to your locker to go home after working. This is Med 3. This ambulance just currently moved into the station from Station 7. Station 3, since we've had it built, has turned into one of our busiest stations in the city. Therefore, we wanted to provide the best care in the closest unit as we could. So we moved one of our ambulances up, and this became Med 3 for this particular instance. Out of this station, we also have Pumper 3. That's a fire apparatus that they utilize to run the calls on this west end of the city. The last vehicle that you see is the chief's vehicle. We have 2 shift chiefs on shift every day, and they split the city. And this chief running out of this station typically covers the west and south area of the city, while our chief of Station 2 covers kind of that northeast section of our city, and they divide it up evenly.
Thank you for going on a tour with us today. If you have any other questions about the Lee Summit Fire Department, please go to our webpage at lsfire.net or follow us on Facebook at Lee Summit Fire Department.
Thanks for joining us on the tour.
Councilmember Hodges.
Thank you. I love where you guys are coming from. You're local and you're all kind of coming together. But where I'm struggling with from the last time that we talked about this, I think it was maybe October. I actually grew up in my district. We moved here my sophomore year in high school. My parents still live in the same house, and I just went through high school here and then have stayed in Lee Summit ever since. The neighborhood that my parents live in is Canterbury. My favorite thing, and I still do to this day, is I love to go running. They have the best sidewalks. I feel like you can go for days. So now I still get to do that. Since I live not too far from them, I get to use those same routes that I took during high school, and it's just fun. All right, let's see it, Jess. Come on. We're a big soccer family. I love sports, I love to watch sports, and it's even more fun to watch sports when my kids are in it. I coach my middle daughter Josie's team. I have since kindergarten. We do the basketball, we do softball, we're gonna do volleyball, and it's just so much fun. Something that I would like to accomplish while on city council is to get more family activities here. You know, I don't want to have to be driving my family to, say, the Kansas side or any other city but my own.
and I want to be able to invest in our city and make family memories in our city.
Open the public hearing in the matter of K1 Speed, Adventures,
Crack Shack, Blue Jeans Golf.
Councilmember Hodges.
I just want to say thank you for bringing this to Lee Summit, because I grew up at this. My grandpa would take us there, so I'm excited that now I can take my kids there.
Bill number 23-0, pre-construction services for the downtown Market Plaza project.
I'm just as excited as everybody else about the downtown marketplace. I'm extremely excited about the community that it's going to bringing more family things to do to the city and right in the heart of it.
When you presented the numbers, the first time you came to us, it was 25.5%, and then a lot of
people were like, oh, being on council, it's not a lot of work, I think it was a bit of a surprise when there's so much info that you realize you just don't know. Even something as simple as sidewalks. It's like you don't realize how much goes into something like that. After a couple months, I'm like, okay, I'm finally, catching the groove of how things work, learning new things, but also feel like I've got some things under my belt as well. It's been a great experience so far.
Meeting the Finance and Budget Committee for Monday, April 7th of 2025. Can we get a roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Funk?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez?
Here.
Councilmember Carlisle. Chair Shields.
Here. We have a quorum. Next item is approval of our agenda. I would look for a motion, please.
Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Lopez, second by Councilmember Funk to approve the agenda. Can we get a vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Funk.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle's absent. Chair Shields.
Aye. All right, next on our agenda is public comment. Do we have any public comments in advance or any members of the public wishing to comment today?
We do not have any public comments tonight, Chair.
Packed house. I'm surprised at every meeting. All right. Next item is approval of the March 3rd, 2025 Finance and Budget Committee action letter. Do we have any discussion on the action letter? And if not, I would look for a motion.
Chair,
Yes.
I move to approve the Finance and Budget Committee action letter for March 3rd, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the action letter. Can we get a vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Funk.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle is absent. Chair Shields.
Aye. All right. Next item on our agenda is TMP-3261, an ordinance repealing Ordinance number 9981 relating to the schedule of fees and charges for the city of Lee Summit and establishing a new schedule of fees and charges to take effect July 1, 2025 for the city. Mr. Gentry.
Thank you, Chair. Rick Gentry, Budget Manager. So item TMP-3261 is the annual bringing forth of the schedule of fees for the next fiscal year. So just for those in the audience that may not be familiar with this, part of our budget process each year is part of revenues are based upon fees charged for services provided by cities and rental of spaces out at the airport and various other places. So we do review those each year, and the departments have the opportunity to update those as needed and requested. So that's the purpose of this meeting or the purpose of this item. So the schedule of fees, the column in the middle there was July's current fees. The red numbers are any changes to those fees. I'll just go through the list slowly on your screen there. These were attached to your packet, was online. So it begins, the departments are divided up alphabetically. So it begins with the airport, their hangar rental fees. They increase those each year based upon the CPI, and that reflects in the 2.9% increase for this next year. With the Hangar 2 coming online, they've established new rates for Hangar 2. It's a new facility and several additional amenities available with Hangar 2 is if you rent office space there. It also includes, I think, some $200 a month of utilities, as well as availability of a conference room space included in that monthly rental fee there. So that's why the $3 doesn't match up with the square footage on the left, is because those additional items are included in those fees. Then they have their hangar rental fees for their hangars out for individuals to rent, and those are going up to 2.9%. And then down in Hangar 1, they're putting in two options this year. One's with a minimum annual fuel purchase, where that'll be tracked by staff that the renters will purchase a minimum amount of fuel over the year, and then those are just purchase fuel as needed, different rates for them. And then doing a similar program for the optional of the minimum guaranteed annual fuel purchase, and those without a minimum guaranteed fuel purchase. Some of their other rates will be adjusted for market pricing. They did a study several years ago in which they're trying to now raise their rates incrementally each year to get closer to the market price, and that'll probably take a few more years because those prices move as well, but they do make an effort to raise those rates a little more than the annual CPI rate. And then some of theirs, they're also increasing these because they're hosting larger aircraft. They're adjusting some of their ranges for the hangar rates and rental fees as well, based upon the different sizes of aircraft they're seeing as well. This year, they've also added, they deleted one of their fees further down, but they've added some service fees as they're providing services, as they're having more requests for people to go and do things once they're here, going and getting food at restaurants and various things and bringing it back. So they are including cost. This is the cost to go do that, plus they are paying for the additional cost. The guests are paying for the additional cost for the food, et cetera, is needed there. Going down, additionally increasing some of the other tie-down rates, trying to get closer to market rates on those as well. And then they're offering a second type of de-icing option there as well for during the winter season. And then probably the biggest increase is recently, in the last few years, the city's hosted Kansas City region large events, and that does put a lot of extra demand on staff and equipment. So to kind of help recoup some of the extra additional increase in expenses, they're doubling their rates during those special event times to help recoup some of those costs and try to make some additional funds during those times. No change in the animal control areas. Our credit and debit card fees, we kind of pulled that out separately. It was part of the miscellaneous fees before, but we felt we need to pull that out and kind of identify those and make those a little bit clearer for service fees. And airport, their service credit fees runs through their fuel contract with AdFuel. So they have a slightly higher cap amount than what we do with our regular city contracts on there. So that's why you see the difference between the 3.5% for the regular city service fees and then the airport. So no changes in the cemetery or development services. I think the next changes are down and see our ambulance support fees. So this is what we charge and bill to residents or the insurance companies when there is a call and for use of ambulance. And those are based upon the prior year expenses and includes calculation of the number of calls that were placed at the time, period. Let's see. Police department did some modifications, some clearing up of some language to help better serve the customers that come to see them at their front desk and with the different request, and then an hourly rates increase because just the pay for that position that does that work for audio and video research has increased over time. And then the lower section is the updating of the sewer and water tap rates on this page, and this was a part of the public hearing. It was back in March 18th. It comes before council. There has to be a public hearing for sewer rates and tap rates prior to the approval of the schedule of fees. So that was presented at the March 18th city council meeting. So we have those increases reflected in the right-hand column. And then, so that's for next year in the tap fees, and then the water and sewer rates. Those were presented as well, and those go into effect in January of 2029. So the rates for each year before that are already been approved and established. With that, there's any questions about the schedule of fees?
Much. Do we have any questions from the committee? I think it's pretty straightforward. Thank you. If we have no questions, then I would look for motion, please.
Thank you.
Chair, I move to recommend for approval TMP-3261, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 9981 related to the schedule of fees and charges for the city of Lee Summit and establishing new schedule of fees and charges to take effect July 1st, 2025 for the city.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to recommend TMP-3261 to City Council for approval. Can we get a vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Funk.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle is absent. Chair Shields.
Aye. All right. That passes. Next item on our agenda is TMP-3267, an ordinance approving the award of RFP number 2025-036 for financial auditing services for a one-year term with up to 4 one-year renewals to Forvis Mazars LLP, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same by and on behalf of the city of Lee Summit, Missouri.
Hi, good afternoon. Brianna Berichter, Director of Finance. This was just our standard 5-year routine RFP that we sent out for our annual audit that we complete and our annual comprehensive financial report as well. Forvis Mazars was our top selection, so we would ask that you move for approval. But if you have any questions, here to answer those as well.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the committee? None, I would look for a motion.
Chair, I move to recommend approval TMP-3267, an ordinance approving the award of RFP number 2025-036 for financial auditing services for 1-year term up to 4 years, 1-year renewals to Forvis Mazars LLP, and authorizing the city manager to execute the same by and on behalf of the city of Lee Summit.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to move TMP 3267 to council with a recommendation of approval. Can we get a vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Funk.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle is absent. Chair Shields.
Aye. All right. Next item on our agenda is TMP 3284, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a contract of obligation by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources to satisfy the requirements for a financial assurance instrument with respect to the city's permit to operate a solid waste disposal area. Mr. Park?
Yes, Michael Park, Director of Public Works. So this is an annual financial assurance statement, essentially, that we send between the City of Lee Summit and MDNR for the landfill. So as you know, we've ceased operation several years ago, but just last year we were given official notice of closure. So post-closure will last 30 years. This provides our financial assurance that we can maintain post-closure throughout that entire period. It has been a number of years since DNR has requested this assurance, but it could be an annual reoccurrence as we see they're trying to, I think, catch up and follow the regulations a little more closely. Also have with me Ms. Welch with SES, our consultant, who helps prepare these assurances, and Ms. Berichter can also perhaps answer any questions you have, along with myself.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the committee?
Chair, quick question. So, Mr. Park, I mean, is this just new ways that the state's going to conduct business? I mean, is there something we should be concerned about or any potential red flags?
In my opinion, there's nothing to be concerned about. They would normally do this on an annual basis. It's just been several years that they have perhaps made a little more relaxed approach, or it hadn't been a priority for them to pursue this on an annual basis. We have the financial assurances in the post-closure fund for the solid waste post-closure, as well as property values that are held in the Browning property. And that's what we do, is we reconcile what we project those post-closure costs to be, and then we assure that we have the revenues and sources of funds to cover that cost.
Thank you. That's all, Chair.
Any other questions from the committee? If not, I would look for a motion. Thank you.
Chair, I move to recommend for approval to full City Council TMP-3284, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a contract of obligation by and between the City of Lee Summit, Missouri, and the Missouri Department of Natural Resources to satisfy the requirements for the financial assurance instrument with respect to the city's permit to operate the solid waste disposal area.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to move TMP 3284 to council with a recommendation of approval. Can we get a vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Funk.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle is absent. Chair Shields.
Aye. All right, next item on our agenda is TMP 3274, an ordinance approving amendment number 8 to the budget for fiscal year ending June 30, 2025, as approved by ordinances 9936, 9937, 9938, 9939, and 9940 by amending the authorized expenditures for the city. Mr. Gentry.
Thank you, Chair. Rick Gentry, Budget Manager. Yes, before you is Budget Amendment number 8 for the current year budget. This budget amendment contains 2 of the 3 items that we bring items for budget amendments, and one is the transfer of money between funds. There's a need for a backup power source at our Main Street fueling facility, and we've been looking around for a backup generator, and our water utilities is in the process of replacing one of their generators at one of their sites, and it's still in good condition and would meet the need for our fleet department. So we'll be transferring $8,000 from the fleet fund to the water utilities fund for the acquisition of that, and transfer that generator from water utilities to the fleet to put at the Main Street power or fueling station. The other component of the budget amendment number 8 is the addition of an FTE to the administration department for a position titled the Facilities and Events Manager, and that's for the Green Street facility across, as we're seeing it's coming along nicely. So we're adding an FTE to there and updating the pay and class plan by adding that position to the pay and class plan. There's no spending authority requested with this, as they have vacancy savings for a couple open positions in the administration department to cover the costs for the remainder of the year. For that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the committee? Regarding the facilities and event manager, when are they hoping to have that person hired, since it's kind of still under construction? Do you hope to have somebody in there before we're open so they can kind of get up to speed? And
They're going to go through the hiring once the position is approved by council, because the Ordinance Committee is approved by council. They'll be able to still post the job and then start that process. They hope to probably hire as soon as they can, because they want to start that planning process and getting things promoted and commitments and, events and things planned out and on the calendar. So when the facility is open, it'll be up and running. Is that right? All right.
I would look for a motion.
Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
I recommend approval of TMP-3274, an ordinance approving amendment number 8 to the budget for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025, as adopted by ordinances 9936, 9937, 9938, 9939, and 9940 by amending the authorized expenditures for the city.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend TMP 3274 to council for approval. Can we get a vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. Councilmember Funk.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlisle is absent. Chair Shields.
Aye. All right. Next item on our agenda is 2025-6853, presentation of the FY26 General Fund and Public Safety Sales Tax Revenue Projections. Mr. Stoyanov, am I saying your name right?
Yep, Stoyanov. Yep. You're close.
Practicing.
Most people don't even attempt, so.
I'm feeling brave today. All right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Eric Stoyanov, Budget Manager. So, as you mentioned, today we'll be talking about the Stoyanov, yeah. We'll be talking about the FY26 revenue projections for the general fund and then the Public Safety Sales Tax Fund. And so, just a quick agenda. So first, we're going to start with just the economic conditions, an overview of kind of what we were dealing with as we were creating this budget, then move into the general fund revenue projections, public safety sales tax, and then discuss next steps for the budget process. So talking about the economic uncertainty, so I actually pulled most of these headlines a few weeks ago, and then obviously April 2nd happened and amplified a lot of this uncertainty, but consumer confidence has been low. There's even talk of recession risk. I know unemployment's ticked up a little bit in the Kansas City area, and just overall retail sales are missing the mark. And so these were just some of the things that we were keeping in mind as we were developing these revenue projections and the FY26 budget that you'll see reflected as we move forward. So property tax, this is our biggest category, and it was a little bit more challenging to do a projection this year. The biggest outstanding question is this is the first year with the senior credit, senior property tax credit that will be applied for Jackson County. And so overall as a category, we went with a 3.5% growth rate. You'll see in the next slide, historically, we've been a little bit higher than that, but we wanted to err on the side of caution a little bit more, just given that we haven't received much information to this point. The county has told us that we'll get more information around November, which obviously we have to get this budget in place by July 1st. And so that is one of the reasons why we went with the 3.5% growth rate overall. And then the payment in lieu of taxes is another thing to point out, but that's related to our LCRA projects and our Chapter 100. But overall as a category, 3.5% growth for FY26. And this is just a visual to show kind of the volatility we've seen in this category. But again, you can tell there's been higher growth rates in the past. We just are approaching this of being a little bit on the safe side since there is that large looming question about how that tax credit's going to impact us. And our hope is that it comes in better than expected. We hit the mid-year point, and then maybe we're able to see higher revenues coming in, put that money back into the community, maybe go after some expansions that we didn't get to at the beginning, but figured it's better to err on the side of caution when it comes to that. Sales tax and use tax is our next largest category. For this as a category, we went with a 2.5% growth rate. Going back to the economic uncertainty, at this point this year, our sales tax is up about 1.7% compared to this time last year. Use tax is up 2.3%, and so those combined are just under 2%, just not the growth we've been seeing in the past. So you can kind of see the trepidation already in our retail sales. And then use tax, it's kind of just the same story. So overall, about a 2.5% increase in this category. I would also note that marijuana tax is included in the sales tax. Since we don't have, I think, 3 or 4 dispensaries now, we can't put that information and pull it out because of state law. So that's why it's rolled up into that sales tax number. And it is, I will say, it's helping our sales tax growth overall. So it's kind of boosting it a little bit better. And here's another visual. So you can see in 2021, that was the year the use tax came into effect, which is why we had that large spike in growth. 2022 was the first full fiscal year that we had the use tax, and so that's 22% growth. And then it seemed like our growth started to taper off a little bit, and we still got growth, but it was on that higher base amount. It wasn't those huge spikes that we had been seeing. 2024 was a little bit of an anomaly. We had 33% growth in the use tax category that year, but I think it was just more retailers coming online with the use tax that caused that. And so now we're leveling out a little bit in that 2 to 3% range. For franchise tax, the 2 biggest drivers here are electric and natural gas. Spire came out and told us we're leaving that one flat. They came out, I know in November they reduced rates. They said in the fall of 25 they plan to increase rates, but with the prior reduction and then the coming increase, they expect it to remain flat. Electric, we've seen consistent 3% growth, which is what we're projecting for FY26. Telephone, it's been a pretty consistent decline there, which we are seeing continue in the FY26 budget. And then cable TV, looks like we've leveled out around that 700,000 number, and so we're leaving that flat for this fiscal year. Overall, as a category, it's 1.3% growth, so just very modest growth here. And again, you can see in FY23, that big 10% jump, that was the year that Spire did 3 rate increases in under a year, so we saw a large spike there. But this one has a lot of volatility to it, but given that we expect natural gas to stay relatively flat and electric to grow just slightly, just marginal growth for FY26 budget. Motor vehicle, the main driver in this is the fuel tax. So the state has another planned fuel tax increase coming up on July 1st of 9%. That's really what's helped drive this category. Motor vehicle sales tax, we have a 3.5% growth rate. Again, it's a big question mark right now, just with the tariffs, and I saw one stat that they expect like 1.8 million car sales drop, and then you also expect car sale prices to increase, and some automakers are even holding their cars at port right now. So it's 3.5%. It's one we're going to keep a close eye on. And then here's the trend. FY23, that was the first year that we saw consistent fuel tax increases by the state. And so since then, we've seen pretty healthy growth in this category. And then our other revenue, so fines and forfeitures, we're keeping that one flat. Licenses and permits, it dropped off a little bit this year. We're expecting just a marginal rebound next year, but another one we'll be keeping a close eye just to see what kind of activity we're seeing. Intergovernmental, so those are some of the grants we receive, also some of the payments we get for school resource officers, things of that nature. Charges for service is a big category for us, so that includes our ambulance fees, our EMS dispatch contracts, special detail for police, and I'll talk a little bit more about that one in a second here. And then other revenue, that's just a combination of a lot of the smaller revenue sources that we have, like material and fuel sales, cigarette tax, intangible tax, things like that. And investment earnings, so that one is purely just our interest earnings on our portfolio. And so charges for service, this is one that we're taking a deeper look at internally. You can see we had a pretty consistent climb up in charges for service revenue, and it's been a little bit more lumpy recently and up and down. And so part of the drop this year was we always receive that commission for collecting property taxes at City Hall. This year, we did not get that, so that accounted for some of the dip. But internally, we're doing an effort to look at those charges, make sure we're staying up to date on all of our contracts, that if there's an escalator in the contract, it's being applied. So it's something that we're looking at because we want to get this back onto a consistent upward trajectory. And then, so this is just a recap for the general fund. So property tax, 3.5% growth, motor vehicle, 6% overall. Sales tax is 2.5%. franchise, just marginal growth, and then that other revenue, 3% growth. And so total revenue growth for the general fund, we're projecting about 3%. And again, with all the uncertainty in the economy right now, this is a year that we will be doing actively monitoring month to month to month to make sure not only our expenses are in line, but our revenues are in line to know if we have to act quickly to make any adjustments. But it's hard to know at this point if the tariffs will stay or if they'll increase or what's going to happen. So it's a fluid situation. I'll pause here for any questions before I jump into public safety sales tax.
So Eric, pretty gloomy, but it is what it is. The sports betting that was approved by the voters last fall, will that have any potential impact on Lee Summit? I know it's close to sports venues and the casinos, but
That one I am actually not sure, but it's something we can look into. Yeah, I don't know.
curious what kind of impact that'll have.
Yeah, no, definitely something I'll look into, and we'll get back to you. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Quick question. So you said something about reviewing the escalators and contracts. Can you elaborate on that?
So some of our contracts have either a CPI or a flat rate, and so just going back and making sure our billing practices are always keeping up to date with those, making sure that those escalators are still appropriate, or maybe going to either keeping them consistent so that they're not all either or, and maybe keeping it CPI for all or a flat rate for all, but just doing an overall review of our contracts.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Going.
All right. So public safety sales tax is an easier one, but it is just sales and use tax are the two financing sources for this. And so it is the same as the general fund, a 2.5% growth rate. But obviously, again, we'll be keeping a close eye on the public safety sales tax since their sole funding source is the most volatile funding source. And then here's just in chart form, you can see that they've had steady growth since the public safety sales tax, but it just largely mirrors. It's about 80% sales tax, 20% use tax is the makeup of their funding sources. And so here's just a budget timeline. So we'll meet again in 2 weeks for Finance and Budget Committee, where we will go over the general fund expenditures, public safety sales tax budget, and then also discuss expansions that will be moving forward in the next budget. And then May 5th, we will discuss the other funds, so the special revenue and enterprise funds at Finance and Budget. May 13th is our public hearing at City Council and the first reading of the budget, and then May 20th is the second reading and hopeful adoption of the budget. And that's
Okay. Do we have any other questions from the committee? Something that we talked about a little bit before this meeting was, what, in terms of keeping a close eye on revenues, knowing that there's going to be maybe some uncertainty, some volatility, what's going to be our kind of overall guiding philosophy of how the budget is being prepared for this next year to kind of take that into account? And if you do see things coming in below your projections, what are some of the dials we might turn to try to keep the city on track? I just wonder if you could talk a little bit generally about that, or if
I think the city manager was
yeah,
going to
if
speak
Mr.
to it a
Dunning
little
wanted
bit.
to speak to that. I just thought it'd be good for a little level setting as we go into this full budget process.
Sure. Yeah, great question. Mark Dunning, City Manager. Knowing that, and I'll talk more specifically about general fund, knowing that, and you'll see this at our expenditures budget presentation, from an expenditure perspective, we're still about 65% personnel, and then about 15% what we call other supplies, charges, and services. So that's whether we need consultants to help out, it's travel, training, professional fees, things of that nature. So when you talk about turning dials, those are our biggest two dials that we can turn. So one of the things, and I'm going to reflect back on, back in the 08-09 timeframe. And so what we put in place, being pretty cautious back then, was as attrition happened, we would go through what we call a vacancy analysis process, asking ourselves, okay, we just lost building inspector? Do we forecast the need for another building inspector in the coming, years? And so we would put that process in place to really trigger ourselves to ask ourselves, oh, okay, we just lost an FTE. Let's go through a thought process before we just advertise and bring on that position. So we have I'll say a tool belt. And I was one that was put in charge of what we called the cost containment committee. And I still have all those ideas from back then to look at how can we go about this in a way that is still allowing opportunities for professional growth, providing the services that the citizens are looking for from us and deserve and expect, while just tightening the belt. So those are a few things that come to mind. Those other supplies and services, that gets into, like I mentioned, employee travel and training. We know that, we can dial that back and encourage a lot of virtual training rather than in-person trainings, things of that nature that we can still, provide that, those needs, professional growth opportunities, learning environments that we want our employees to take advantage of, but in more cost-effective ways. So there's a number of things that we can look at. But I would echo what Mr. Stoyanov mentioned. This will be one of those in a year of uncertainty where looking at this month to month, seeing what trends are and just being cautious as we go through this, rather than, I'll say what we've been doing now is really put an emphasis on quarterly looks. We can ramp that up as we go into this budget year.
Thank you. I think the example you gave of a building inspector, that's a really good one, because that's something, if we're hoping we don't, but if we have a downturn, that's the kind of position where if there's not as much economic activity, you might not need as many personnel in something like that. So it's a good example of where some of these things may kind of touch each other. So obviously we all hope that things keep rolling along, people keep shopping local and everything else, but we appreciate that you're keeping an eye on things and have some strategies in place for that.
Yep, and I would echo what you saw in our revenues, right? We're being a little more cautious in anticipated growth in revenues intentionally, right? I think we're doing a good job keeping our eye on what we're hearing and seeing out there.
All right, next on our agenda is Roundtable. Do we have any Roundtable from the committee? Have any Roundtable from staff? Okay, and I think it was on our presentation just now. Our next meeting is sooner than it normally would be. We're going to be back here on the 21st at 4 p.m., so 2 weeks from today. All right. Nothing further, then we will adjourn this meeting at 4:33 p.m. Thank you.